Good evening, friends. I am happy to welcome all the HR fraternity. The concept of industry under the Industrial Disputes Act and the concept of factory under the Factories Act and the concept of industrial establishments under the Kerala Shops and Commercial Establishments are synonymous. Most of the HR people will consider all these terminologies are more or less similar. Take for example, the word industry under the Industrial Disputes Act covers a wider concept. It covers industry as per the Industrial Disputes Act latest, the Supreme Court judgment. It includes all establishments, whether it is making profit or not, every systematic activity carried on by the employer and employee is an industry as per the decision of the Justice Krishnaiyer by the Supreme Court. So every industry, the industry means except the sovereign functions exercised by the government is an industry. A barber shop is an industry. A small dukan, a small pawn shop is an industry. A hospital is an industry. A school is an industry. So the concept, in our mind, we feel that industry means a factory-like atmosphere we think of. It is not. Industry means where any systematic activity is carried on with or without the object of the profit motive. So, as per the Supreme Court decision, the sovereign functions of the government exercise is only exempted. Say for example, defense is exempted. A research organization of the ISR or VSSC is exempted. Otherwise, all activity carried on systematically is an industry. So, once an industry the Act applies to an industry, the provisions of the Industrial Disputes Act applies. So there is no number of employees, whether it is 1 employee, 2 employee, 100 employee or 1000 employee. The Industrial Disputes Act applies to every establishment, every industry where systematic activity is carried on. So the temple is an industry. The various High Court has come to the conclusion that Pujari is not an industry, whereas all other people associated with the temple is a workman under the Industrial Disputes Act. We are again confused with the term factory. Factory and industry is totally different. Factory is defined under the Indian Factories Act of 1948, wherein it says when the manufacturing activity is carried on, the term factory applies. So every establishment should either be under the Industrial Establishments Act or under the Factories Act. Factories Act defines factory is a place where manufacturing activity is carried on. So when we use the term manufacturing activity, the Factories Act considers something different. It is not one product to another. The layman's answer is manufacturing is making one product to another. It is not so. The Act says cleaning, oiling, washing, ornamenting, polishing, even washing the garage is a car in the garage is a manufacturing activity. Once the manufacturing activity applies where you employ 10 or more employees with the aid of the power, it constitutes a factory. A manufacturing activity without the aid of the power and 20 employees are employed, it will also constitute a factory. So all industrial establishments, wherever manufacturing activity is not carried on, the term industrial establishment comes into operation, where Kerala Shops and Commercial Establishments Act applies. So I am sure that all of us are employed, all the HR people employed are either it should be a factory or it should be a commercial establishment under the Kerala Shops and Commercial Establishments Act of 1960. The Shops Act defines Commercial Establishment Act, any systematic activity carried on where there is no manufacturing activity is carried on, it will come under the Kerala Shops and Commercial Establishments Act. Both this act are, the intention of the act is to take care of the workers' welfare, security, working conditions, overtime, leave, etc. Similarly, under the Factories Act also, it stipulates the safety, security, welfare of the employees where manufacturing activity is carried on. Again, we are all confused with the word. When you talk about a company, company is distinct or different from factory or an industrial establishment. A company is a place where it is a company is a company which is registered under the Indian Companies Act of 1956. So it is not necessary that all companies should be factories, or all companies should be industry, or all companies should be an industrial establishment. So the term factory, the term industrial establishment, the term shop under the Shop and Commercial Establishments Act are totally different. So when we deal with the HR functions in an industry, it can either be a factory, or it can be an industrial establishment, or in the broader sense, it can be a company. All establishments need not necessarily be under the Indian Companies Act. You can have a partnership firm, you can have a sole proprietorship firm, or you can have a limited liability company, or you can have an one-person company, or you can have an establishment registered under the Charitable Societies Act. These are all establishments. So the term company, the term industrial establishment, the term shop under the Shops Act, the term factory, the term company has to be vividly thought about and discussed, and only on realizing the difference, the HR man should be able to identify and bifurcate and simplify the applicability of the various acts under the various legislation.